From Town Hall of California, we bring you another regular weekly program featuring speakers from business, government, industry, and education. Town Hall is an impartial forum dedicated to civic education and the discussion of public questions. We go now to the meeting in Los Angeles, where the chairman of the day, Mr. James C. Green, partner in the law firm of O'Melveny and Myers and vice president of Town Hall, will introduce the speaker, the Honorable Robert F. Kennedy, Democrat, Senator from New York, who will address us. Here is Mr. Green.
Members of Town Hall and guests, Town Hall, in keeping with its policy of having presidential candidates appear on its forum to discuss their views in front of Town Hall's members, welcomes today Senator Robert F. Kennedy. 2 weeks ago, we heard in this room Senator Eugene McCarthy. Town Hall has invited both Mr. Nixon and Mr. Rockefeller to appear here, and we are hopeful that they will accept our invitations. After Senator Kennedy has Thank you. After Senator Kennedy has completed his formal remarks, there will be a brief question period. Senator Kennedy seeks the nomination of his party. He has a broad background of government service from 1951, when he graduated from law school, down to the present day. During the 1950s, he served the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations in several capacities, and finally as chief counsel. He managed his brother's campaign for the Senate in 1952 and for the presidency in 1960. He served as Attorney General of the United States from 1961 to 1965, first under his brother and second under President Lyndon Johnson. Since 1965, he has been Senator from the state of New York. He has spoken before Town Hall in the past. We welcome him back today, Senator Robert F. Kennedy.
Mr. Green and Governor Brown, distinguished guests at the head table, and ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be here. I apologize for being a little bit late. It was nice of Mayor Yorty to provide me with a police escort. It was just when we were starting to go through Pomona that I felt that maybe... And I was very pleased to hear that Governor Rockefeller and Ronald Reagan are going to be invited to speak here. There's a good deal of talk as I've been around in this campaign about them making a ticket of Rockefeller and Reagan. I thought it was a little bit like Bonnie and Clyde opening a savings account somewhere. I'm pleased. I was very grateful for the warm handshake I just received from Governor Brown, which I hope means something. Every once in a while during this rather serious talk, I'm going to look over and smile in his direction and hope he smiles back. I'm pleased to have an opportunity to talk to all of you, business community, financial community, where I have such wide support. They took a poll, one of the financial magazines, amongst 500 businessmen, of the man they admired the most and who they'd like to see president. And I got one vote. So. And I understand they're looking for him. So. So I gather this is not a Democratic rally on my behalf. But I'm pleased to be here and highly honored because I think you've served in over the period of years in such a useful, valuable way for the state of California and for the United States.
Thank you very much, Senator Kennedy. Members and guests, as I told you, the Senator has agreed to answer questions.
Easy questions. Not those hard ones. Oh, the question, well, I'll repeat the question. The question was that we've all heard discussion about the problem of peace in Vietnam from the various candidates, and the gentleman said that he would like to have from me an outline of a mechanism by which peace can be achieved. Is that correct? First, let me say that I've written a book called To Seek a Newer World, in which I've outlined my views about what needs to be done and the steps that need to be taken. And I did it in much greater detail than I'll try to do it here. And if there are points in what I say, it's a detailed, complicated matter. But if there are points in which I say that you want further clarification, I'd be glad to try to answer. My first point really is that I think that the problem has been that we've made it America's war, and that I think that we've made it a military conflict, and I think it's far more complicated than that. I should say at the beginning that I was involved in an administration that where we became more and more involved in Vietnam. So when there's blame to be assessed about what is happening in Vietnam and the difficult problems that we're facing in Vietnam, that administration of President Kennedy has to share its responsibility, and certainly I do as well. I was a member of the National Security Council. I was involved in some of those matters at that time. So I don't say these things on the basis of blaming anybody or any person or any administration, but rather at what I think I recognize from my own experience and my own mistakes and the direction that we're moving at the moment. I think we looked on it as a military conflict, that we killed as enough of them compared to how many we were going to be killed of our own army that they would eventually give up. I think it was much more than that. I think that as we started to send large numbers of American troops, that the people of South Vietnam looked upon it more and more as an American war, that it was white man's war, that it was the continuation of the French effort to control Vietnam, and therefore they didn't associate themselves with that effort, an effort of independence and an effort of freedom, but either became more neutral or associated themselves with the National Liberation Front or the Viet Cong. The result is, of course, the recruitment of the NLF grew tremendously over the period of the last 2 or 3 years. There's no question we were killing large numbers of them. But if you look at the figures of who we were killing, the Army was wiped out every year. But in fact, the Army grew from January 66 to January 67. It increased by 50% during the same period of time, according to our own figures. Plus the mortally wounded, or those who were so badly wounded they couldn't enter the conflict anymore, everybody would have been dead. So I think that their recruitment program has been successful. The military effort that we have made and concentrated on that, I think, has been a mistake. Third, I think that we have not made it clear enough that the government in Vietnam has to end its corruption and the dishonesty. I think people should feel free to applaud any time that they want. I think that when we were drafting our 18-year-olds and particularly our 19-year-olds, and that they were going to Vietnam and fighting, I always felt that Vietnam should be willing to do the same thing. And I think we should have made that not only privately clear to them, but publicly clear. When they had the debate about that 3 or 4 months ago, they've started taking steps in that direction now, but when they had the debate about that 3 or 4 months ago, a member of the General Assembly got up and said, why should we draft our young men to fight America's war for them? I didn't think that was acceptable. I don't think I know, and I don't think that makes me unpatriotic to think that that's not acceptable. I think that when we appropriate funds, as we do the United States for refugees, with the definite knowledge that only $1 out of every $3 that we pay and spend and we raise from our taxpayer is ever going to get to the refugee, it's all going to be funneled off in the meantime, I think that's unacceptable in the United States. I think the fact that the young man could buy his way out of the draft as easily as he could in Vietnam was unacceptable. That kind of corruption. I don't think that it was acceptable to have the Commissioner of Customs be one of the biggest smugglers of gold and opium into South Vietnam. I might be old-fashioned, but I thought that And to excuse that on the basis that we have corruption within our own country, the corruption, if we have it in our country, should be cleaned up. But in addition to that, it's not costing American lives. I think we took over the major burden of the fighting. We found that we could fight better than the South Vietnamese, so that we took over the burden of the fighting. Last week, for instance, we had 350 Americans killed. For the South Vietnamese army was some 290. I think the major burden of the fighting, that this is their war, this has to be carried by them and not by Americans. When our dead doubled from 1967, to over 1966 and went up to 10,000, they're killed, and the South Vietnamese army was going down till it was less than ours. So it was quite clearly being made America's war, America's effort. I think if there were search and destroy missions which are necessary, I think that they should have been conducted by the South Vietnamese army. We lose a third of our men on search and destroy missions, plus the fact that we destroy large parts of South Vietnam, and we've killed, responsible for the killing, as we have to acknowledge, of many innocent people. I would, if those kind of missions have to be conducted, I think they should be conducted by the South Vietnamese army. I think the American army should be used to protect the large population centers. I would withdraw our troops basically from the DMZ and that area, again, where we've suffered such high casualties, and have them replaced by the Army of South Vietnam. Again, it's their country, it's their land, it's their war. If it's going to be won, it's got to be won by them with our help. I'm willing to give them our assistance, but I don't think we can carry the major burden of the conflict. Just if I may finish, I just think that we should go to the negotiating table. I felt in February of 1967 it was quite clear from the statements of Ho Chi Minh and Pham Van Dong that they would come to the negotiating table at that time if we stopped the bombing. Secretary McNamara testified before congressional committees that the bombing did not stop them from supplying whatever men and materials they needed into the South. So that the risk for us at that period of time was not great. We stopped the bombing in 1966 for 36 days. When they had offered to come to the negotiating table only with 4 preconditions which we couldn't accept. They changed their position by the end of 1966. I think we should have taken that step, gone to the negotiating table and seen if we could have settled the dispute then. I still think we should go to the negotiating table and see if we can settle the dispute. I think we should be willing to negotiate with the National Liberation Front. We're not giving them anything that they haven't acquired already on the battlefield. And I think that also we have to accept the idea, whether we like it or not, which has all the great risks that I know are involved in it, but that the NLF and the Viet Cong are going to play some role in the future political process of South Vietnam. Either we can do that, we can go to the negotiating table, or we can do 3 things. We can unilaterally withdraw, which I'm opposed to. We can escalate the conflict and continue like we are, which I think will lead to greater and greater casualties, greater and greater deaths, and will not have any greater success than we've had in the past. Or third, we can go to the negotiating table. If we can try, and perhaps we're not going to be successful, and as I said, if we're not successful, we can always go back to killing one another again. But it seems to me that at least we should make that effort. And if we said that we'd go to the negotiating table any time, any place, I think we should keep our commitment and go to the negotiating table. If I think that the government's policy has been a failure, and I want the private sector to take over, where do I differ from the conservative philosophy? I think that something should be done. Well, to tell you the truth, the question was if his opinion or judgment was that I was against the Gulf of Tonkin resolution, then why don't I offer a resolution in the Senate putting in a different kind of a resolution? I don't think you understand what my position is, importance is in the United States Senate. Perhaps you wouldn't raise that question. But beyond that, my judgment is really that we have to look to the future. We can talk about the Gulf of Tonkin and what happened that night and that that period of time, and I think it's all going to be terribly, I think it's going to be written up in our history books. But the fact is that the President of the United States has the authority under the Constitution to take a lot of these steps. What it seems to me is that what we should look to what the lessons that we've learned in the past and start to move on to the future and the kinds of steps that would bring a peaceful solution to the struggle in Vietnam. And I've outlined what I think need to be taken, the steps that need to be taken in Vietnam and in our relationship to Vietnam to try to find a peaceful solution to that struggle. That's what I think is more profitable and more worthwhile. Well, what is my opinion on the balance of payments? Now, the balancing the budget, then the dollar. Well, I'm very interested in the dollar. I think that we should move in the direction of as much as is possible to balance the budget. The reason, really, basically, that the budget is not balanced at the moment, the federal budget is not balanced at the moment, is the war in Vietnam, which is $30 billion. If the war was not taking place, if we were not spending $85 million a day or $600 million a week in that struggle, then, of course, the budget would be balanced. In fact, there would be a surplus. It seems to me that's the direction in which we should try to move. The greatest deficit, peacetime deficit we had was in 1958, and $12.5 billion. And I would not like to move in that direction, and I think that we moved in an important way in 1961 and 1962 and 1963 and 1964 toward greater affluence for our business community, greater profits and greater affluence for the individual here in the United States without a corresponding inflation. There has been more inflation over the period of the last several years, 3.5% to 4%, which I think is very dangerous. It's another strong argument, as I say, to ending the war. I think that the soundness of the dollar is essential. I think one of the basic concerns that other countries have had, I think it's all related back, if I may say so, to the struggle that's going on. If other nations think that the war is going on for a long period of time, that that's going to continue to be an outflow of gold as it is, then they are going to feel that there should be they will have less confidence in the dollar. So I would do all that I could while the war is going on, to cut down and cut back on unnecessary programs, on vital programs, that are not of the first priority of the federal government at the moment. Secondly, I would, as I say, do all in my power to try to end the conflict in Vietnam, not just because of, or obviously primarily because of the deaths and the destruction and the agony, but also because I think that it is having major repercussions not only within our own country, but in our relationship with other countries, and particularly their confidence in us. The question was, all of the evidence has demonstrated a close tie between illness, cancer, and cigarette smoking. Would I be in favor of the government restricting the amount of advertising that can be done by the cigarette companies? As I look around this room and see people light up, I think that what I would like to see, we have about between 5,000 and 10,000 children in the United States who start to smoke every day. We have 1 million children in high school at the present time who will die prematurely because of cigarette smoking. I think somebody who is an older person, over the age of whatever it might be, can decide for themselves what they want to do. They might find that the life expectancy of being 10 years less for a person who smokes frequently and actively than a person who doesn't smoke, that person might decide that it's so much fun smoking that they don't mind cutting off the possibility of cutting off the years. They can make that decision. What is of concern to me is for the advertising that is aimed at children, to start new children or start children smoking cigarettes. And I have met with the cigarette companies to see if they would, on a voluntary basis, cut back on cigarette advertising on television, which is watched by large numbers of children. And that would be a restriction on the times that cigarette advertising takes place. And it would be also on the kinds of programs cigarette advertising takes place. You can, in the survey, show quite clearly what programs children watch. And it seems to me we should move in the direction of a voluntary effort by the cigarette companies and by the broadcasting companies, realizing that this is a great hazard to health and poses this great problem for children that I would like to see them move together on a voluntary basis. Whether I can be an effective leader, well, I'm just going to make an effort so that we all perhaps understand each other better. I'm going to, obviously, that I have those who are not 100% supporters, to put it mildly, but the only thing that I can do, it seems to me, is that I will go and I will speak about what my views are and what I think this country stands for and what I think we should do and what our responsibilities are, and then I will answer questions. And I would hope that I agree that there are problems, but I would hope that perhaps I could break down some of those barriers. The only way that I can do it, I expect, is to campaign and to go around the country and speak before groups and answer questions. And if they leave the hall thinking I'm a danger and ruthless, then I've gotten nowhere and I'll have a difficult time. And if they don't, then I made some progress. But I don't know. It seems to me that's what a political campaign and political effort's about. That's why we have campaigns. That's why a democracy exists. And perhaps through some effort by me and perhaps some understanding on the other side, maybe I can break down some of the barriers which you mentioned. I hope so. I've cut my hair, so it was a beginning. I want to say how much they just... You did something? You want me to go? Would you like me to... I'll take one more. Now, the question was, what was my position in connection with the state of Israel in case of Arab aggression? Number one, I think we have a commitment, a moral commitment and a legal commitment to the state of Israel that must be kept under all circumstances. That I think that the commitment has been made by every administration. I think that we also have a moral responsibility of considering the suffering that the people of Israel and the Jewish people have borne over the centuries, that the Holocaust of the 1930s, of which all of us must take some responsibility for the fact that we didn't move earlier, that they were established in a country, they were established with our help in Israel, and that it has to be quite clear by everyone, and whether one be of the Jewish faith or one be of some other faith, that we have this commitment and that this commitment is going to be honored under all circumstances. And secondly, I think that we have to make that clear not only in our own country, but I think that we have to make it clear to the Arab world that in the last analysis, the only answer for the peace in the Middle East is for the Arab world to finally recognize that Israel is going to exist and that they should sit down and be prepared to negotiate with them and see if we can find a peaceful settlement to that struggle. Could I just say how much I appreciate having an opportunity to talk to this distinguished group, and that I will be in California again, as others will be, and that I find this a great honor to have appeared before all of you, and a great pleasure to have been with you. Thank you very much.